Good afternoon, and welcome to the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership webinar. Today's webinar is Introducing Shoreline Living, a resource to promote natural shorelines on inland lakes. My name is Jo Lattimore. I'm a faculty member at Michigan State University and the Education and Outreach Chair for the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership. And I'd like to share a little information about the partnership and also logistics for today's webinar before we get started with our presentation. The Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership hosts these lake conservation webinars to share science, management, and outreach efforts of interest to all of our partners. You can keep up to date with our webinars by checking out our webinar page at midwestglaciallakes.org. Webinars in the series will be added to our webpage alongside other webinars of interest, with a goal of having 4 to 10 webinars each year. Notifications for the webinars will also be provided through our quarterly newsletter. You can sign up for our newsletter at our website. If you'd like to share your experience or project results through a webinar like this, please reach out to our coordinator, Joe Noner with the Michigan DNR. His email address, nonerj@michigan.gov, is on the screen you can see right now. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership, we are a partnership of professionals and stakeholders focused on conserving the over 40,000 glacially formed inland lakes across an 8-state region. Our mission is to protect, rehabilitate, and enhance sustainable fish habitats in glacial lakes of the Midwest for the use and enjoyment of current and future generations. Our partnership provides science for lake conservation, such as our Conservation Planner tool that provides information about every lake in the partnership. We provide outreach and education to stakeholders, managers, and professionals through webinars, news releases, Twitter conversations, and sharing of materials related to lake conservation. And finally, we also provide funding for science, outreach, and education, and on-the-ground rehabilitation or protection projects for fish habitat through our Lakes Conservation Grant. This grant is released every year in August and provides about $300,000 for lake conservation projects that benefit fish. Today's presentation will last about 40 minutes, and we'll hold the remaining time for your questions. As participants, you all will be muted during the webinar. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A function to submit them using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I'll moderate those questions and we will try to get to all of them before our hour is up. If for some reason you have technical difficulties, or if you would like to share this webinar with others who couldn't attend today, we will post a video recording to the webinar page of our website within a week or so. Today's speaker is Erin Fuller. Erin is a watershed coordinator with the Van Buren Conservation District. The virtual stage is yours now, Erin. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Jo, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me today and giving me this opportunity to share this project with everyone. Let's make sure I can get my slides going. Well, of course, now my slides are not going to forward. Are you able to hear me, Jo?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my slides will not advance.
You might want to try closing and reopening PowerPoint. It was working really well a few moments ago, so I'm sure it'll work just fine here in a minute. It just got tired of listening to me talk, I think.
We apologize, everybody. There we go. All right. Well, apologies, everybody, for the technical difficulties, but we will hope that we are smoothly on track. So yes, again, thanks to Jo and thanks to the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership for giving me this opportunity, and they've been just doing a really great job of doing a lot of interesting webinars during this time when a lot of us are home and maybe are looking for some new ways of interacting and learning. So I appreciate all of that opportunity and hope that everyone who's here today will get something out of this. We have this new product, this Shoreline Living magazine, that we're eager to share with you and eager to have you be able to take it out into the world and use either on your own personal property or with the people that you're working with. So just a little bit about where I am or who I am. I do work for the Van Buren Conservation District in Southwest Michigan. It's in Paw Paw, Michigan, and I'm actually talking to you from my home office in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So yes, I do work in a town named Paw Paw and live in Kalamazoo, so I have the market cornered on goofy names. So that's just a tiny bit about me. I have been a watershed coordinator for the Van Buren Conservation District for 17 years now, which is astonishing to me. I'm clearly not that old. I don't know how that happened, but I do a whole variety of different projects, all related to water quality. I've worked on river projects and lake projects and a whole variety of things. But I also wanted to hear a little bit about who all is out there today. So I have a few poll questions. So I'll have Joe put up that first poll question asking, what state do you live in? I'm just curious to see where everyone is from. Like I said, I'm here in Michigan, but I'd like to see where everybody else is from.
Well, the answers are coming in, so we'll share the answers so you all can see where everyone is from once we get the majority of your votes in.
Hopefully these are easy questions. I don't want to tax anybody too much. All right, results are in. It looks like Michigan is in the lead and Wisconsin is next. Quite a few from Minnesota as well. Wonderful. All right, thanks everybody. And then the next question is, are you here for personal or professional reasons? Are you here for work, or are you a lakefront property owner and are looking for ideas? Or are you just bored and will watch any webinar that comes along, which that's fine by me. I understand. Okay, it looks like the majority are here for professional reasons, but also quite a few for personal reasons. All right, thank you. And then the last question is, do you personally own property on an inland lake? Again, just trying to get a feel for who is out there, who's listening today. Okay, kind of a mix, but more no than yes, which that seems about right, because like I said, it looks like a lot of you are here for professional reasons and probably are looking for resources to use with the folks you work for. All right, thank you so much. So here we go. This is the document that I'm going to be talking about today. Today is really its official public release. So you're hot off the presses, if there were any presses running, hot off the internet. So yes, this is our magazine, Shoreline Living. It's meant to be an attractive, eye-catching magazine style piece. Kind of a different sort of a tool than I think probably a lot of us that work in natural resources outreach. It's a little different. It's a little maybe softer. It really emphasizes storytelling, telling the stories of different landowners and their journeys with installing natural shorelines or protecting existing natural shorelines. And we're hoping that it's a tool that will attract an audience that maybe we have been missing in some of the work that we do. I think a lot of us who are in the natural resources profession spend a lot of time reaching out and educating people, but I think there's probably a gap. There are audience members that we're missing. And so that was the idea with this magazine, is to try to just reach out to a new audience and get them hooked, get them interested in the idea of installing a natural shoreline. So with the project, we had some goals. We started the project back in 2018. with the basic goal to expose property owners to the social norm of natural shorelines. We want natural shorelines to not seem like a new and different and strange thing. We want to show people that it can be done, it can be lovely, and just, you know, everyday people can have them. It doesn't take a scientist to install one necessarily. That it will work for anyone. We also wanted to increase the acceptance of landscaping with native plants and just make sure people saw pictures of them in an attractive setting and could really see how they can be beneficial both to their lake and also just look pretty. And basically the overall goal was to increase natural shoreline conservation. So how did we do this? How did we go about doing this? Well, our first goal was to identify properties that highlight the desired shoreline features. So we took some time and went out to a variety of sites to try to find spots that showed a nice range of different properties that we would find on glacial lakes in the upper Midwest, you know, ranging from urban to rural to highly built up, you know, more suburban looking areas to more wild looking areas, calm lakes, wavier, more high energy lakes, just the whole suite of different properties we were trying to highlight. We thought it was really important to work with a professional photographer and a professional writer and a graphic designer so they could really get the look of this right and really tell the story properly. I think sometimes, you know, I often will try to do it all myself, but it became clear that this was a project where we really needed professionals to step in, and we were very lucky. We found professionals that not only really understood the project and understood what we were trying to do, but also just were very skilled in their craft. So then once we had the sites figured out and we had our professionals on board, we interviewed the property owners and we took photographs at each site. And with all of that material, we could then create final products. So that's sort of where we are now. You'll see there's a question mark after the print word there. We're working on figuring out how to create printed copies. We are hoping later this summer to have printed copies of this, and I'll talk a little bit later about coordinating an initial batch of printed copies, but right now everything is online and available online to share, or you can print your own copies online as well. These are the landowners. We ended up having 5 sites. These are the really wonderful and generous landowners that worked with us. Like I said, really wonderful people, very generous to open up their yards to us and spend quite a bit of time, both with our writer and our photographer, telling their story and just really sharing what worked for them, what didn't work for them in their process of creating a natural shoreline or protecting existing natural shoreline. And they were all quite different. So it was really neat to see how they all approach this idea. And some of them are pretty deep into it and really knowledgeable, and some of them are still kind of new to the concept of natural shoreline and are relying on professionals to guide them. Some are doing it themselves, just a mix of people. But we're very thankful to all of them for all the help that they gave us throughout this. So why are we doing this? I think most of the people who are probably listening today understand that inland lakes are important and keeping them clean is important. And we have over 89,000 miles of inland lake shorelines across the upper Midwest. And actually, I'm betting that is an undercount. I think we probably have more than that, but a lot of lake shoreline, and that shoreline is a crucial spot. You know, it's the connection between the land and the water. And it's where we can have a lot of control over what happens in the lake. We can do a lot of work in the shoreline to protect lake water quality. And that, you know, these lakes support multi-billion-dollar economies, fishing and recreation. All of that, it's important to have clean water for those activities. And, you know, what happens on on the land affects the water, and we can promote native shoreline plantings along the shoreline to filter pollutants. That shoreline zone is a critical area for fish habitat and reptile, amphibian habitat, aquatic insect habitat, and just really crucial that we keep that lake shoreline as natural as possible in as many areas as possible. And also, I think a lot of us know that property values are higher on clean lakes, so that's important to the people who have property on them. And basically, healthy lakes enhance our quality of life. Even if we don't own property on an inland lake, we'd likely spend some time on it, swimming, kayaking, fishing. A lot of us have a lot of interaction with inland lakes in our regular lives. And we know that lakes are at risk. In the last National Lakes Assessment, which was in 2012, more than a quarter of United States lakes were considered to be in the most disturbed condition for vegetation along the lakeshore at that land-water interface. So I think, this is something that we know we want clean and unpolluted lakes, but there are stressors. And so we're trying to figure out what we can do to help protect them, how we can engage the public as much as possible and tell the story of how to keep a lake clean. So this is kind of a goofy picture, but I like to look at it to remind me of the audience that I'm reaching out to. I think a lot of time, those of us in the natural resources community, we spend a lot of time talking with our colleagues and our peers, and it's easy to forget that not everybody is as steeped in the knowledge as we are. And so I try to think about just the general public. We have all kinds of people who own property on inland lakes, and they probably want their lakes to be clean. That's pretty basic, I think, but they might not necessarily understand the science behind what keeps their lake clean. And so we need to figure out if there's a way that we can reach out to them and engage them from the very beginning. I feel like, a lot of times we preach to the choir. If I hold a workshop about a lake issue, I can almost guarantee who is going to come. It's the same old, it's the choir. But how can we reach out to the people who are not going to come out to a lake workshop or pick up a fact sheet or something like that? And why doesn't everyone have a natural shoreline? What are the barriers? These are a few of my ideas what the barriers are. Some people just don't know better. They don't know why installing a natural shoreline might be beneficial for their lake. They might not have the resources, whether it be financial or informational. They might, just not have the information that they need or the finances that they think they might need to install a natural shoreline. And of course, there's always the issue of being concerned about what the neighbors think. Oh, if I stop mowing this area next to the lake, the neighbors are going to complain. It's going to look scruffy. It's going to look wild. Just concerns like that. They're valid concerns. And we were hoping with this project to help show people a way forward. And we know that people care about water quality. I think this is very interesting. This is from a Gallup poll. Every year Gallup does a poll that includes quite a few questions about the environment. And one of the questions is, how much do you personally worry about the pollution of rivers, lakes, and reservoirs? And 80% of people worry a great deal or a fair amount. 80%. I mean, when was the last time 80% of Americans agreed on anything? So I think this is good information for us to know. We see this is something that people care about and are concerned about, but they don't always know what to do. They don't always have the motivation to take the next steps. And there's a lot of resources out there for people already. These are a few of them, and they're really good and useful resources. And you know, I don't want to take anything away from how important all of these resources are, but I think a lot of times these resources are geared towards people who are ready to take the next step. They're not geared at engaging people who have no information or no understanding of what's happening in their lake. And that's that gap that we were trying to address. If 80% of people are worried about water pollution and having clean lakes, then 80% of people should be landscaping with native plants and having natural shorelines, but that's not quite the case. And so how can we start to address that gap? And again, these are all of the types of information that are here. They're really useful sort of for later steps in the process. How do we engage people from the very beginning? That's where I started to think about this from a marketing perspective, which I have a pet theory that anyone who's involved in natural resources outreach should probably take some marketing classes, and I lump myself into that category. I have not taken a marketing class, but you know, I wish that we could figure out how to advertise some of these environmental concepts and these natural shoreline concepts in the same way that you know, we could advertise new cars and get people excited about, you know, the things that they see in advertisements on television. So this graphic here, this is called the marketing funnel. If you haven't seen something like this before, you can think about this if a brand was introducing a new product. These are the steps they would take. They would at first start with awareness and engage people to become more interested, at which point they could hopefully hook them to make a decision to buy that product and take action. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about as it relates to this project here. The product that we've created with this magazine, the Shoreline Living magazine, is really that upper level there, that awareness level. Let's hook people. Let's hook, you know, the doctors and the truck drivers and the people who don't have any background with lake science, but care about their lakes deeply. How can we hook them in to thinking about their shorelines and what the next step might be that they can take? And we want to share success stories and show attainable solutions. There's some research out there that when, you know, we've seen that people care about clean water and water quality and environmental issues, but if they're hammered with problems too much, they sort of lose interest. Instead, they need to see success stories, and they need to see that there are solutions that are attainable, and that gives them more hope. We actually, one of our sites that we visited and have photographs from, they worked with a landscaper, and she has a really nice quote in the magazine. She's also an elementary school teacher, so she has a lot of experience working with people. And what she says, she's a natural landscaper and elementary school teacher, and she says, I try to get people excited about natural shorelines in a way that doesn't shame them. When people hear you say that they're doing something wrong, they tend to quit listening. And so again, that's what we were trying to achieve with the magazine here. Show people solutions, show them that natural shorelines can be lovely and beautiful and help keep their lakes clean, but not shame them. Show solutions, share stories, and take that approach. So here's what it looks like on the inside. I'll just share, I won't show the whole magazine to you. I'll just share a few pictures of the inside, but you can see it's a nice, attractive layout, large photographs. I know you can't read the text, but after the webinar, I hope you'll check it out online and read through it, because the writing is really lovely as well. It was really great just to hear the landowners in their own words, to see how they approached either protecting an existing natural shoreline or doing some of their own plantings or hiring contractors to do the work. They all took different approaches, and it was neat to see how they did that. Here's another layout. we have some call outs, some quotes from the landowners, and we have key takeaways. So I know a lot of people just skim through print material these days. So we're hoping that if people are just skimming, they'll be able to get something out of it, either, you know, from the bullet points or from the quotes that are pullouts, or just, you know, even if they're just looking at the pictures, they can kind of see, this can look pretty, it can be functional, it can help me stop erosion on my shoreline, there will be wildlife, you know, pollinator habitat, all of those things that we think people care about. I want to share the sites just to give you an idea of the range of properties that we looked at. I'll sort of go from one of the more impacted sites to one of the least impacted sites. Like I mentioned earlier, we visited a nice range of different properties. So this site here was installed in 2017. It was a new construction, and they did a lot of work with managing runoff. They really wanted to not increase runoff to the lake, and so they have a rain garden in the front of their house and swales that infiltrate rainwater, any runoff from the roof or paved areas. They also have patio. Their patio is not paved. It's stone, like a field stone paver patio, so the water will infiltrate between the stones. And they've used a lot of native plants in their landscaping, and they have a native plant buffer. This was a project that they did hire contractors to do a lot of the work for them. It was a pretty big project, as you can see, but I think it ended up looking really nice, lots of nice blooming plants in the summertime. I should also clarify that as you're watching this, you'll probably see some things that you realize are not perfect. These are not all ideal, perfect natural shoreline sites. Some of them have maybe a little more mowed lawn than we would like to see next to a lake. Or, you know, some incorporate fewer native plants, but again, we wanted to show a variety and show people that there's a range of things that they can do on their lake, and try to make it as attainable as possible for people. This site is an interesting one. It's a real small, narrow lot, but they've done a great job keeping a lot of the tall trees. They have a lot of nice mature oak trees. And they have just a small area. They have grandkids that come and use the lakes. They do have a small little beach area, but they've tried to put in as much buffer area as they can. They also were having quite a bit of erosion problem, quite an erosion problem, and just didn't want to put in a seawall. This is a lake where putting in seawalls is the common approach to dealing with erosion. But that wasn't something they wanted to do. They were worried about how their grandkids would be able to get in and out of the lake, and they didn't want them skinning their knees on a seawall. So they looked for a different kind of approach and put in logs, coconut fiber logs, that they then planted with native plant plugs. And there's some rocks there as well that you can see to help protect those plants from some of the wave action that they get. Then this is another site. This site has actually, I'm trying to remember how long this has been in place for quite a few years. Jan, the woman in the black tank top in these pictures, she's the property owner, and I think when she moved on site, there were some native plantings, not purely native plantings, kind of a mix, but then she started getting more and more interested in native plants and landscaping to protect her lake, and ended up going to a conference maybe 4 years ago or so, and met the landscaper who's here in the yellow dress. They met at a lakes conference, and Jan just got really excited about putting in more native plants and doing what she could to keep her lakefront property protected. She also said she likes to keep things orderly. As much as she can, she tries to plant her plants in clumps, but she's realized that that in some cases is a losing battle. So hers is kind of a nice mix of, she has some stone pathways and a dock and things like that, and the plants are sort of sorting themselves out and growing where they want to grow. This is our fourth site. This is a lake in a relatively rural area, but it is under some development pressure. This natural shoreline has been installed for nearly 20 years at this point. When these folks moved in, it was all mowed lawn, and then apparently there was like a invasive shrub thicket at the shoreline. And so when they moved in, they did away with over half of their lawn and planted native plants. So they now have this narrow walkway, narrow grassed area from their house down to the lake. And you can see in the lower left-hand corner there, that's the view from the lake looking back up to the house. So they've tried to let it grow in as much as possible and just have a narrow view and a narrow spot for their dock. And you could even see in the upper right-hand corner just a little pathway. They have a lot of aquatic vegetation that they've left, and there's just a narrow pathway for their canoes and kayaks. And then this was our last site. And this was sort of the most natural site. These folks have lived here for 35 years, and they've basically just left it alone. When they moved in, it was pretty much in its natural state, and they have left it that way. They have let the aquatic plants grow, and they just have a spot for a dock and their little rowboat. They have grandkids that visit them, and there's just enough area for them to get in and out of the water, but they don't, as you can see, they don't cut anything back. They don't mow anything. They trim a few branches from trees, so they have, a little bit of view from their house to the lake. But you can see in that bottom left-hand picture, you cannot see their house from the lake. It's right in the center here. This is their dock, and this is their house back here, but they have left as much vegetation as possible. And they said it really gives them a feel of solitude. They really like, even though they're on a lake with other people on it, they just can really feel the solitude because they have so much vegetation around them. It dampens any noise from their neighbors or from boats on the water. And they really appreciate what that looks like and feels like. And this is a lake, it has sort of the classic up north lake feel. They have loons and that kind of thing. And so they feel like a lot of their neighbors understand what they're doing, and there's not a lot of neighborly pressure to have a grassy lawn. So they've appreciated that. We do also have a page at the end of this magazine. As much as we want to focus on storytelling and showing lovely pictures and engaging people, we also wanted to give them the opportunity to take the next step. So the last page in the magazine is a Learn More page with links to programs in all of the states in the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership area. So any folks in any of these states will at least have a jumping off point if they are ready to take the next step. So as I mentioned earlier, today is kind of the beginning of our rollout for this magazine. The website here at the top is the site where this is living online. So it's the midwestglaciallakes.org website under the resources section, and it's just called Shoreline Living. And we have sort of a toolkit of parts. So we have the online magazine, and in a minute I'll actually just open up the website to show you what it looks like. But the online magazine and all of the individual articles are available on the website for download for your own use, or if you work for an organization that you think you could use this for, you can download and share with your network. We also have all of the photographs available for your use. Again, for educational purposes, they are available for free. And we are hoping to create a print magazine. Hopefully this summer we will print some copies, and we are working on coordinating that right now. But if you think you might be interested in having print copies for your organization, I'm going to share my contact information at the end, and please reach out to me if you are interested in having print copies. So we would love all of your help in sharing this with your networks, and really trying to push it out to people who live on lakes, and get it out to our audience. All right, I'm going to see if I can get this to work. I'll just open up the website. Give you just a quick peek at it. All right. So this is what the website looks like, where this is hosted. Again, the Midwest Glacial Lakes website, and it's under this resources tab, the Shoreline Living booklet. So you'll see the picture of it there. There's some text, links to download. Some of the photographs are there. And if you wanted to read individual articles, they're laid out here. And then we have all of the contacts linked here as well, so people can come right here and get to their state program where they can learn more. And then this is sort of where the nitty-gritty is. If you're interested in print copies, you can email me, and again, I'll share all this information at the end, so you'll have time to write it down. We have the full document available in a variety of different resolutions. You know, the professional print version is here, but that's a little much for posting online for a lot of folks, or sharing via email. So we have a few different varieties for anyone's use. And then we have all the chapters available individually as well. And here is where we have all of the pictures available. So if there are any photographs that you would like to use for non-commercial use, you know, we don't want these to be used for profit, but any kind of educational purpose, these are available for you to use for free, as long as you give credit to the photographer. And when you go to the pictures link, it says that how to give credit for non-commercial, personal, or educational use, and credit is given to Mark Boganaski Photography. So I hope that those are useful resources for you in your work, and I hope you'll be able to use those photographs and things that you do, and like I said, just really try to engage people and hook them into this idea of natural shorelines. We are going to be doing some social media advertising of this. So here's some examples of some of the graphics that we'll be posting on social media. You can follow the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership on Twitter at MGLFHP, and retweet things or share things on Facebook, or I don't know, what are all the latest social media crazes? TikTok, I'm sure we'll have like a great Natural Shorelines, Shoreline Living TikTok dance or something. I don't know what the kids are doing these days, but keep your eyes open on social media, and share this stuff as much as possible. If you work with lake associations, you know, we're really eager to get this out to as many people as possible. And I'm going to have Joe actually open up a chat box for a minute, because I'd love to hear from you folks on how we can make this tool useful for you. What more would you like to see from us? You know, would you like to see different types of properties highlighted? Would you like to see this in a different medium? Would you like videos? You know, I feel like the world is beginning to be run by 15-second video clips. Do we need a whole bunch of short video clips that we can share on social media? But yeah, just hop into that chat box and let us know how a resource like this could be more helpful to you. What could we provide you to help you get this out into the world? And
Yeah,
we
so
are,
we have
oh,
the
go ahead.
chat is open. If you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll see it's near where the Q&A is, but there's a different one called chat. And if you click on that, you can put some ideas in there. I see some are already coming in.
Excellent. I'm using you all for free information. I appreciate it. I appreciate the help. So yes, we're going to keep working on this project. This isn't the be all and end all. We are working on another phase of it where we'll be profiling additional sites in a wider geographic area. And we're going to keep working on distributing this and marketing it, really, trying to take lessons from the advertising world to get this out in front of people. And like I said earlier, hopefully working on having printed copies that we can distribute to lake associations and other lakefront property owners, share with partners, share with landscapers and other shoreline contractors, that kind of thing. Just really trying to get this out into the world as much as possible. And one of the things we're hoping to do as well is pitch individual stories to other publications. I think we're hoping that the existing magazine that we've created, the Shoreline Living, we can get that out to a lot of people, but also if we can use some existing home and lifestyle magazines and get the articles in there, I think that will help us expand our reach as well. So here are a few of the examples of the types of magazines we're looking to pitch articles to. These are all Michigan-centric publications because they're the ones that I'm familiar with, but if you're in another state and have similar publications, we would love to hear your ideas of where you think these articles would be useful. I want to make sure to give a lot of credit to the people that helped with this project. Our photographer, Mark Bugnaski, was just very eager about this project, really understood what we were trying to teach people, and just had a great way about him, a great way of interacting with all of the landowners and engaging them and getting really nice photographs of their landscape, and of close-ups of frogs and butterflies and of the people themselves. So as a photographer, you have to have be pretty talented, I think, to be able to get all those different types of subjects, and he did a great job. And we had Kat Dobbs was our designer in the center there. She did a wonderful job laying the publication out and making it attractive and lovely and eye-catching. And then Tom Springer was our writer, and again, just did a wonderful job really telling the landowners' stories and figuring out what was important to them and what to highlight in each story. And Tom is a natural history writer. He's worked for the University of Notre Dame and the W.K. Kellogg Foundation as a staff writer, and has published a couple of natural history books. Actually has one coming out, The Star in the Sycamore, will be released this June. But a good storyteller, and I think that was something that was really important to this publication, is again, to tell the story of these landowners and what motivated them and what made them take that next step. Some credits, this project wouldn't have happened without support from a variety of organizations, from the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Program of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we're very thankful to them and the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership for supporting this project. And this was the publication team, and everyone did a lot of work just making it all come together, and so appreciative of all the help that we got throughout this project. And this is sort of where I want to leave it, with this quote from one of our landowners. This is really what it gets at. We want other landowners to see this and be inspired. She wanted her lake to be as healthy as possible and prevent runoff, and wanted it to look pretty, but also serve a natural purpose. And so we want to show people that may not have any interest at this point, we want to show them what they can do. and inspire them to take some steps towards a natural shoreline. All right, and I'll leave you with a giant picture of myself just because in this strange new video conferencing world, I think it's kind of funny to hear these disembodied voices. So I wanted to leave you with at least an idea of who you were listening to. And my contact information is all there. If you are interested in ordering printed copies, we are going to be working on that. Let me know by July 1st if you or your organization is interested in participating in a bulk order. We don't have the final pricing available yet because we don't know how many copies we'll be ordering, but it will be, it's looking like it will be under $2 a copy, just to give you a rough ballpark. I'm hoping it'll be much less than that, but we'll see. So do email me if that's something you're interested in, or even if you just are wanting to open the conversation, get in touch, or any other ideas or questions that you have for me. I'd be happy to hear from you. My phone number is listed there. I am not at that phone number right now, but I am able to retrieve messages from it. So you're welcome to leave a message there or email me anytime. And then the website address is there at the bottom as well, where all of this information is hosted. And so I hope that you'll be able to use this document and share it with your networks. And I hope it will provide you with a new tool that will reach that audience, that hopefully a new audience that we have not always been great at reaching out to in the past, and really just with the most basic information, try to engage people and encourage people to install a natural shoreline or protect an existing natural shoreline. So I think with that, I will take a minute to take any questions that may have come in.
Thanks so much, Erin, for your really interesting presentation and for sharing this really great new product that MGLP was able to help support. Again, folks, if you're listening and have questions for Erin, you can type them into the Q&A. If you have comments or input, you can put those under the chat. I see one question that snuck into the chat, so I'm going to start with that one for you, Erin. And the question was, has the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership considered coordinating a multi-state publication covering site examples from different states? For example, not just Michigan. Although each state has lakes with different characteristics, we all seem to be facing similar difficulties in promoting these practices.
Yes, we absolutely have. And that was an eagle-eyed person who noticed that all of those sites were indeed in Michigan. We were hoping even in that first phase that we could get some sites in other states, but we just didn't have the budget for it, unfortunately. But yes, that is our main goal in the next phase, is to hopefully actually not have any sites in Michigan, and yeah, get sites from all the different states in the region.
All right, next question. Do you have any, or do you plan to get any before and after photos?
That's another thing that we're hoping for in this next phase. It's a little trickier just because of the time span. The grant that we're working under is a 1-year grant that we were able to get extended to 2 years, but that's not always enough time to find the before and after, or to find the site and get the before pictures and the after pictures. But I think that is a really valuable part of the story. And so, yeah, that's something that we're certainly thinking about. I think even if we can just use some of the landowner snapshots, they may not be the most perfect before shots, but I think they would help tell that story. So yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
All right, next question for you, Erin. If a publication wanted to reproduce some of the articles or content, who would the editor contact? Would that be you?
That would be me, yes, absolutely.
All right. Again, questions, please put those in the Q&A and not the chat. I'm going to do the best I can to watch both of them, but another question snuck into the chat. What were the overall costs to produce this publication? Was there a combination of grant and match and so forth? I'm just interested to get a ballpark idea there.
Yeah, so the total grant amount for this project was $18,000. And that included some staff time, paying the photographer and the writer and the graphic designer, some travel costs as well. And it was purely grant. We didn't have any match component for this project. And that, yeah, $18,000 was enough to get us to about five sites.
All right, next question for you. This is a lovely book and it illustrates all the good things about natural shorelines. It looks really great. Does the book discuss any challenges that lake owners may face or upfront economic costs?
It's probably a little light on that. I think there's a little bit maybe about challenges in terms of like weeding and things like that, or wondering what the neighbors might think. There's not much about the costs of it, really. And I don't know, I think that was a question that we did ask the landowners, how they faced or how they dealt with that. But it was such a mix of what work they did. If they hired a contractor, that was quite expensive, but some of them really did a lot of the work themselves. So yeah, I don't think we did a great job of addressing that, but maybe that's something that we need to think about in the future. Well, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, one of the landowners did note that they installed a natural shoreline instead of a seawall, and part of the reasoning was that it was a lot cheaper. So there was that. But yeah, I think the economics of it would be interesting to take a deeper dive into that for a future iteration.
All right, Erin, another question for you. Are you aware of any financial resources for landowners, such as grants and other things, to help them do a natural shoreline?
Ooh, no. I might have to defer to Joe on this. I am really not very well versed in what's happening in other states besides Michigan, and unfortunately, nothing is coming to mind for me. Joe, do you have any knowledge about that?
Well, as we mentioned at the top of the seminar, the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership does have a grants program, but it tends to prioritize larger scale projects rather than individual homeowners. So we have had examples of, entire lake associations that have worked together, entire communities to collaboratively apply for some of that funding. But different states also have support. For example, Wisconsin has cost share funds for shoreland restoration. Thanks for typing that in, Steve. There's also Healthy Lakes grants through the state of Wisconsin. So a couple of our colleagues in Wisconsin want to make sure folks know that there are resources there in Wisconsin. And it really varies what state you're in, what municipality. There may even be local sources of funding. Lake associations may get behind it. But they're besides a large scale kind of project, like the kind that would be supported by the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership, it's really going to be more local resources.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, I apologize for not having better background on that, but I think that's a great point, that might be something that we can add in a future iteration. We can link people if we do learn of grant opportunities for individual landowners. That would be super useful for people.
Yeah, and so here's a question, and I'm not sure if it applies to the properties that were featured in this publication, but it is a good general question. How do you convince landowners to do natural shorelines?
That is a great question. And I don't think there's one clear-cut answer. I think they need to see examples. I think that's one thing that we learned from talking to the landowners that we did. They had all seen a natural shoreline or gone to a conference and seen pictures of a natural shoreline. And somehow they learned that link between a natural shoreline and a healthy lake. And so again, that's kind of what we're hoping to get at with this magazine, is showing what they look like, showing that they can be pretty. But beyond that, that is the $1 million question. How do we get people to take take those steps. Um, I don't have the one answer, sadly. I'll let you know when I get it though.
And we'll have you in for another webinar when you do.
Right.
Okay, I just want to remind folks, if you have questions or comments, questions in the Q&A box, comments or feedback in the chat box. I do have at least a couple more questions for you here, Erin. One of them was about your marketing funnel slide and that process of basically getting people to move into action. This person observed that, in their opinion, with a science-based action such as natural shoreline restoration, you should include education in the marketing model. Wouldn't we include education between the interest step and the decision step?
Oh, that's a good point. Yes, I think that's great. Yeah, and I do not want to represent myself as knowing really anything at all about marketing. So let me be clear, that is not my background at all. But yeah, I think education is a really important piece. And there is, I think in this magazine, there certainly is some education. But I also think that sometimes our initial point of engagement needs to have a pretty light touch and not be maybe quite so full of facts and figures. You know, it's so dependent on the individual that we're reaching out to, so it's hard to make generalizations. But yeah, I think certainly, and I don't remember, Joe, which stages you said between the decision and
Between interest and decision.
Yeah. So yes, I think that is a part of those stages, absolutely. Yeah. But I think in that initial awareness part of the funnel, which is kind of where we are focusing our efforts with this particular project, yeah, having a light touch with the education piece is kind of what we're thinking at the moment. But we'll report back in a few months when we see how people are engaging with it.
Sure, yeah, and you did also, illustrate a number of kind of more education-heavy publications that already exist as well. And so people who get kind of hooked by looking at this beautifully produced publication may then be, excited and inspired to dig into some of the more detailed educational publications or classes that they can do.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
All right, I've got one more question for you, and that is, are you sharing this with realtors and tourism departments?
Ooh, that's a great idea. We haven't yet, but I'm writing it on my list right now. Yeah, I think that would be really important. A lot of the homes, certainly in our area, that are on inland lakes are often rentals or seasonal properties, and yeah, I think if we can reach out to those folks, that would be really helpful. And yeah, showing that connection between property value and clean water. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's on my list. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all so much for attending today. We've gotten through all the questions. We are going to be saving the comments and input you all put into the chat. Erin was obviously very interested in your feedback, so she'll have a copy of that. We've also recorded this webinar. As we mentioned at the beginning, give us about a week for us to process the video, get the captioning on there, and that'll be saved along with all of our other past webinars on the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership website. So you can find that there on the same website where you find this Shoreline Living document. So remember, you can always reach out to Erin. Her contact information is there if you think of ideas afterwards, or particularly if you're interested in obtaining printed copies of this publication. The more that are printed, the cheaper each one will be. So it's important right now to get a sense from our different states and our different partners who may be interested in distributing and chipping into an order of this to keep the prices down. So again, thank you so much for joining us today at our Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership webinar, and we hope we will see you again soon.